Hi everyone. It's another very easy, quick canvas that we can paint over lunch. So please join us today because we're painting this marvelous little Italian skyline. Let's get started. Okay, once you've got your canvas set up, it's the 6 basic colors today. Green, blue, that is green. It just looks a little darker. Green, blue, yellow, red, black, white. And I've put white in my mixing section, my big mixing section. A lot of stuff is going to be mixed with white. Okay. Blue. We're going to start off with creating a blue. Mix your, I wet my brush. I'm using the biggest brush to cover the most space. Mix a little tiny bit of the blue into your mixing section, if you have one of those, or a separate palette, and then put a little bit of white in. Now you can see I'm only using a little bit of white because I'm going to use the white for something else, and I'm only using a little bit of the area of my mixing palette because I want to use the rest of this to mix other colors. So my color blue for my sky is going to be about that. Nice light blue. So when you've got that, about 1/3 of the canvas down is going to be the sky area. And with a little bit of interest, I'm going to make the sky area go down a little bit because I want to put my field there. So around that kind of space, about 1/3 of the way down is where I'm going to put my sky. And because I'm going to be putting in a little bit of a hill, my sky will dip, not quite in the middle, and then go up to the right. So when you've got that, if you've got a stretch canvas on a frame, you're going to have to paint around the side of your stretch canvas as well, up to where you have got your horizon. But while it's wet, I do want to add in a little bit of detail, sky detail. Now you can either add it in with this big brush, or you can take the small brush. I've got the little square small brush here. If you've got something like that, you can use that for the detail, or your round brush. I'm going to use this little one. Wet that, dry it off on the cloth, and I'm going to load plain white onto this brush. Not a lot, just a little at the tip of the brush, because it's a little canvas. And I'm going to add in some cloud detail. Now, and to add some interest in the rest of the sky area, I'm going to add a little bit more of the darker blue to my light blue mix that I have there. Not too much. You'll see when you put it on the canvas if it is too much, you can just add some more white. And I'm going to do the same thing with that darker blue to add some more drama around my sky area, using the same backwards forwards motion like that, so that you have a little bit of interest in that sky. Doesn't have to be a lot. I'm taking it over the top of the canvas as well if it's a stretch canvas, and around the side. So I have very much a 3D sky effect wherever I've added the darker blue. And you can see there really doesn't have to be a lot of detail in that, and it still makes a lovely sky. We're going to now do the grass area, or the field area. And for that, I don't want to use plain green. It's up to you what green you use. But I'm going to add a little bit of the dark green into my yellow area and give myself a lime-colored green. Still fairly dark. Add a little bit more yellow in there. And you can see I'm not adding a lot of paint. I'm only using a little bit of paint because I can mix more as we go along. And I'm back to using my biggest brush because I need to cover the canvas as fast as possible. And basically, If you start from the left and bring your horizon down from the left underneath your sky area there. Try to make mine as smooth as possible. So I've painted the left-hand side. Once you've done that, I'm going to use the strokes, add a little bit more yellow into that green so it's slightly lighter. So I put a little bit more yellow in there. That I'm going to treat as a field that's further away. So as it gets closer, it gets lighter. From this side, from the right-hand side, I'm now going to give myself a sweeping hill and fill the rest of the canvas all the way down. And as we did before, paint the sides of your canvas as well. Okay, you can add some more detail while this is wet. So I'm going to tire that brush for now. I don't need that brush anymore. I'm back to the smaller brush. And to add some detail in while it's still wet, you can add maybe some green, plain green, to the back hill. My back hill is probably going to flow this way. So adding in some interest, take a few lines of paint. I don't know if you can see that. So just a few lines of paint, bringing it down to where it meets my front hill. And I'm going to apply the same principle to this front hill and add a few lines of yellow and green like that, following the line of the hill. It's almost like the grass is growing that direction. You can see? Because I'm going to put my houses, my Italian houses in this area here, just going to paint a little bit more yellow in that area because it highlights the houses when you do paint them. The background hills are a little bit darker than the sky. They're actually a little bit purple, which is an interesting mix with these two colors we've got here, red and blue. So take a little bit of the blue, set it aside. A little bit of the red, set it aside. And I have a purple there. To you, it might look a little dark. In fact, to me, it looks a little dark. So I'm going to take a little bit of the white and add that in as well. So the mountains, they're very small across the back here. We don't want them to be too prominent, but they do tend to follow the line of the mountains of this front field or the back field. Your mountains are yours. You can do them any shape you want. So if you want to have them slightly higher, slightly lower, do them as you wish. I want my mountains to go like that. I'm going to fade them off in this area here because my houses are going there. So I don't want to paint too much, I don't want to put too much paint in that area there, but I do want them to appear again on the other side here. And go around the corner too. Go around the side here as well. I'm going to put a few more darker details in various areas like that. Just a few strokes. Making your house color, it's like a sandy beigey color. I want a tiny bit of red, tiny bit of yellow. So I've got an orange-ish color. White. So I'm going to take some white and add it to that mix there. Maybe a bit more. And a very small bit of black. Perhaps I need some more yellow. And then when you've got that, you've got a kind of a sandy, more white. Quite a lot of white. The black does make it a little bit more of a yellow ochre. Happy enough with that mix. I don't want too much paint on my brush though, so I'm going to get rid of a lot of that paint. So there's only a little bit of paint on my brush. In my first house, I'm using this flat brush. So if you've got this, that's great. If you've got a round brush, just make a square with that color. I'm not going to make it too high either. I'm going to make it about that high. I'm going to make a rectangle first. It is sitting on the hill, so I need to take it down onto the hill, but I want it to be more of a square-ish building. That's my building. I'm going to put one next door to that, but a slightly different level. So this one, I don't want it to be as wide. So on the right-hand side of that, I'm going to put another rectangle that is not quite as wide, not quite as tall, not as wide. And I'm going to do one on the left-hand side as well, even lower than that, and maybe bring it a touch in front. All right, adding some detail onto these blobs now, these blocks that we have here. We have got the sun shining from the right-hand side, which means the left-hand side of these buildings are going to be in a little bit of shadow. So that color, that sandy color that you've got there, I'm going to add maybe a little bit more black to it and a little bit more red to it, very little. And I've got a slightly darker color. Get rid of the majority of that paint. So with that darker color now, we want shadow on the left-hand side of the houses. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to put a line of shadow on the left-hand side of that house. If it's not dark enough, make it a little bit darker. Mine seems to be a bit light. I'm going to add a bit more black to mine. Make it a little bit darker. There. And I've got shadow on this side, but this building overlaps this one slightly. So I'm going to make sure I show that it overlaps. Go around that, and I've got a little bit of shadow on the left-hand side of that building. And if it's got shadow on the left, it's going to have highlight on the right. So you can either take plain white or mix a lighter color white, mix some light into your sandy color to make it a slightly lighter color, and do your highlight on the right-hand side of the building. Make sure you still have a little bit of the sandy color showing. I'm using exactly the same color scheme that I've got going here, and I've added lots more red and black into that. And that's going to be my roof color. Still using my big brush, my big round brush, but you can see it's quite a lot darker. That's the roof color. Stroke of the dark color. There always seems to be a little bit of a, I don't know, a crow's nest, an eyrie or something on the top of these buildings. Maybe it's a bell tower, I don't know. So I'm putting a little bit of a bell tower on the top of the Italian building there. Maybe a little one there. I put a little bit of a square on the top of that one. Maybe a little one on that one. A little one on that one. I'm going to mix a darker tree. Trees are never this green. They're not this beautiful green color. They're a mix of green. I'm going to mix it with a bit of blue and a little bit of black. That gives me an olivey color. But add a little bit of yellow in there as well. But it gives, trees are more olive than green. And my tree is, using the point of the brush, just make a tree like that, using the point of the brush. This one might go down a little bit further. I'm going to make a smaller one beside it. Another one on this side here, using the tip of the brush. And a smaller one beside that. Those are my trees. You can add as many as you want. And the trunk is just a little line with the brown that you've used for the roof. The trunk is just a little line underneath those trees. Just a little line like that. The doors are plain black. So I'm going to I've loaded plain black on this brush, so I've washed it off. All right, so all I've done is I've put a few little windows and some doors, some square doors at the bottom of the building. Right, my flowers, I'll do the red first. So I'm going to load that up with red. Some of my flowers are bigger and some of them are smaller. So I'll do my big ones first. My big ones are going to be down here. Because my houses are there and my eye is going down here, I want people to see its balance in the picture. I want people to see flowers here and they'll follow this down. So I'm going to put some nice big red blobs here, which are my flowers. One's closest to me. But I have a poppy field that's growing out and back here. So I'm going to put some smaller ones on the left-hand side, just blob some smaller flowers there, maybe a few bigger ones. And I'm on a stretch canvas. I'm making my bigger flowers come towards me here. So I've got a lot of big flowers. So I've got a beautiful 3D effect there. And you can see they're not all together. These blobs are not all together. Some are bigger, some are smaller, some are clumped. There's space in between others. Okay, that's my red flowers. Yellow, wash your brush off, load it up with yellow. So I'm going to intersperse my red with a little bit of yellow. Maybe take those further in the distance there as well. So wash the brush. I'll put quite a lot of white on the end of that paintbrush because I do want to blob them. These ones are bigger in the front over here. And down in front. And I'm going to make them go a little bit smaller and off into the distance behind in the field behind here. Tiny ones. These smaller ones. I don't want to cover all of the field though, so I'm just putting a few little ones in there. And around the corner. Maybe one or two over this section. One or two, not many. And I'm done. That's me done.